Today, you likely picture the Great Pyramid of Giza as a rough, sandy-colored mountain of jagged stone. That image is a complete lie. You are actually looking at a flayed corpse. Over 4,500 years ago, this monumental structure was a blinding lighthouse in the desert. It was encased in perfectly smooth, polished white limestone, reflecting the Egyptian sun so violently that it would nearly blind anyone who dared to look directly at it. So exactly where did that divine glowing armor go? We are about to embark on a meticulously designed roadmap through time to uncover the violent tragedies that tore apart the last remaining wonder of the ancient world. This journey is structured so that every single revelation is far more visually striking and destructive than the last. We will start with the brutal literal skinning of the pyramid before moving to the complete disappearance of its golden crown. If you want to uncover the darkest hidden truths of our ancient past, make sure to subscribe and register for our channel right now so you never miss a future expedition. As we venture deeper into this escalating historical nightmare, we will witness how medieval warlords used fire and freezing vinegar to violently blast open its northern face. Finally, we will reveal the most terrifying secret of all. The Great Pyramid is secretly dying right now from the inside out, and humanity is completely responsible. Prepare to completely unlearn absolutely everything you ever thought you knew. Our journey into the destruction of the ancient world begins with an act of unimaginable vandalism. Step back in time to the year 1303. At this exact moment, the Great Pyramid of Giza is not a jagged, crumbling ruin. It is an absolute geometric miracle standing tall in the Egyptian sun. The entire massive structure is wrapped perfectly in 144,000 casing stones made of pure white Tura limestone. These were not simply rough blocks stacked together. They were carefully cut with an optical precision that rivals modern laser technology. The ancient builders polished them so flawlessly that they reflected the intense desert sun like a colossal mirror. Some historical accounts even claim the blinding light could be seen clearly from miles up in the atmosphere. But perfection is incredibly fragile. In the early 14th century, a massive, devastating earthquake roared across the Mediterranean and violently shook the deep foundations of Egypt. The brutal tremors violently rattled the entire Giza plateau. The perfect, seamless joints of the glowing white armor finally cracked and separated. The once invincible limestone shell became dangerously loose and vulnerable. What happened next is truly heartbreaking. The local rulers did not see a sacred ancient wonder in need of immediate repair. They only saw the largest and most convenient open-air quarry on the face of the earth. A massive, hungry army of stonecutters and laborers descended upon the Great Pyramid. They unleashed a relentless campaign of physical destruction to harvest the perfect white stones. If you wish you could travel back in time to stop this tragedy, press number 1 right now. Over the following decades, the reigning sultans and local builders ripped away millions of tons of this magnificent limestone. They tied heavy, coarse ropes around the massive glowing blocks and violently pulled them down to the desert floor. The heavy stones shattered and crashed against the lower levels of the pyramid, tearing away the majestic surface with a deafening roar. The builders then dragged these optical masterpieces miles away into the rapidly growing city of Cairo. They eagerly recycled the divine armor of the pharaohs to construct new mosques, fortresses, and lavish palaces. The great lighthouse of the ancient world was being skinned alive day after day. The sheer scale and speed of this stripping process remains an incredibly impressive yet terrifying logistical feat. Humanity managed to completely cannibalize the greatest architectural achievement ever constructed in just a few short generations. They worked with such relentless efficiency that today only a handful of damaged casing stones remain hidden at the very base of the massive pyramid. The glorious white diamond of Giza was permanently reduced to the rough yellow core we see today. We are literally looking at the exposed, jagged bones of a desecrated ancient masterpiece. It is deeply unsettling to realize exactly how quickly basic human greed can erase thousands of years of untouchable majesty. The pristine shell that survived countless earlier empires fell victim to ordinary builders looking for an easy resource. The entire massive body of the pyramid was violently stripped of its glowing armor, leaving it forever scarred and naked beneath the brutal burning sun. But the looting did not stop with the walls. If the giant body of the pyramid was stripped of its outer skin, what happened to the most sacred piece sitting at the top? When the deafening noise of the crashing limestone blocks finally faded into silence, a new, much quieter mystery was born. If you stand at the base of the Great Pyramid today and look straight up into the Egyptian sky, you will notice something incredibly unsettling. The top is completely missing. The structure we see today stops abruptly at a flat, jagged plateau exactly 138 meters above the desert floor. But the original architectural blueprints of the ancient builders reveal that the pyramid was designed to reach an astonishing 146.6 meters into the heavens. That means nearly 9 meters of solid stone and precious metal have simply vanished into thin air. Welcome to the mystery of the pyramidion. In ancient Egyptian engineering, the pyramidion was the ultimate capstone that crowned these massive monuments. It was not just a simple block of limestone. Historical evidence and fragments found near other monuments suggest that the capstone of the Great Pyramid was completely plated in a brilliant alloy of gold and silver known as electrum. Before we dive into the chilling disappearance of this divine crown, please take a quick moment to subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing you the deepest secrets of our ancient world. The sheer visual impact of this electrum capstone would have been absolutely staggering. It was carefully angled to catch the very first rays of the morning sun long before the light ever touched the desert floor below. It served as a blinding golden beacon that literally connected the mortal world to the divine power of the sun god Ra. It was the absolute pinnacle of ancient engineering, a flawless geometric peak that completed the massive mathematical puzzle of the entire structure. Yet this priceless crown is completely gone. What makes this disappearance so incredibly frustrating is the absolute silence surrounding it. There is no official historical record detailing exactly when the pyramidion fell or who took it. Did a band of highly skilled and desperate tomb raiders manage to scale the smooth white casing stones in the dead of night to pry the heavy gold away? That seems completely impossible given the sheer height and the incredibly steep, polished angles of the original outer walls. Or perhaps a massive conquering army from a distant land violently dragged it down using thick ropes and heavy iron tools, pulling the glowing golden eye of the Great Pyramid straight down into the dirt and sand as the ultimate forgotten trophy of a deeply brutal war. We simply do not know the absolute truth today. The disappearance left the highest point of the most famous monument on Earth completely flattened. It is a jagged, empty space that leaves the sky above Giza feeling strangely incomplete. The golden crown was meant to guide the soul of the pharaoh into eternity, but instead, it was swallowed completely by the dark shadows of human greed. The complete lack of evidence continues to baffle modern historians and expert archaeologists worldwide. No piece of the original golden capstone has ever been found in any royal treasury or black market collection. While the sacred top of the pyramid was quietly stolen in the dark without leaving a single historical trace, the lower sections of the monument suffered a far more visible and violent fate. If the missing crown represents a silent theft, what brutal act of destruction permanently scarred the northern face of the pyramid? We just explored the silent, mysterious theft at the very top of the monument, but the lower section suffered a much more visible and violent fate. If you think you could break into the most secure ancient vault ever built, press number 3 right now. The reality is that breaching this flawless structure required absolute sheer brutality. Move your eyes down the northern face of the Great Pyramid today, and you will see a massive gaping wound carved straight into the ancient stone. This is not the result of natural erosion or an earthquake. This is the brutal legacy of Caliph al-Ma'mun, and it is a testament to human greed. In the early 9th century, around the year 820, al-Ma'mun was completely obsessed with the rumors of unimaginable gold ancient artifacts and lost scientific knowledge hidden deep inside the pyramid. He gathered a massive team of men and marched to Giza with a singular goal to break inside. But there was a massive problem. The original entrance was hidden so perfectly behind the smooth casing stones that his men could not find it. The structure was practically seamless. Frustrated by the impenetrable exterior, al-Ma'mun decided to completely abandon any finesse and resorted to pure elemental destruction. His men targeted a section on the northern face and unleashed absolute chaos. They built massive roaring fires directly against the giant limestone blocks, heating the solid stone to extreme blistering temperatures. Once the blocks were burning hot, the men poured freezing cold vinegar straight onto the scorching rock. The sudden massive thermal shock violently shattered the ancient masonry. They used heavy battering rams and iron tools to claw through the fractured rock, slowly hacking a jagged, chaotic tunnel straight through the solid core of the pyramid. They burrowed blindly into the dark monument, driven by the promise of ultimate wealth. The sheer effort required to create this tunnel highlights something absolutely staggering about the ancient builders. They engineered a fortress so perfectly sealed and mathematically precise that thousands of years later, an entire army led by one of the most powerful rulers in the ancient world could only breach it by literally melting and shattering their way through solid stone. The ancient Egyptian security system was absolutely flawless, forcing intruders to use mindless violence to achieve their goals. Yet the most unexplained and deeply ironic element of this entire violent saga is how we interact with it today. Al-Mamun and his men eventually broke into the descending passage, but they found no treasure. The burial chambers were already completely empty, but their violent, desperate tunnel remained open. Today, when millions of excited modern tourists travel to Giza to step inside the Great Pyramid, they do not use the original elegant hidden entrance designed by the pharaohs. They walk straight through the jagged, brutal wound created by a greedy medieval warlord. We literally enter an ancient holy site through a permanent scar of vandalism. The Great Pyramid survived this horrific attack, but we must remember that it did not stand alone in the sand. It was not just a single isolated tomb. It was actually the beating heart of a massive, gleaming city of the dead. If the main pyramid was violently violated and stripped of its armor, what exactly happened to the vast surrounding complex of beautiful temples and perfectly paved causeways? We just explored the brutal scar left on the face of the pyramid, but we must remember that this towering monument did not stand alone in the sand. Today, when you look at photographs of the Great Pyramid, it appears as a solitary, majestic peak rising from the empty desert. But that isolation is a complete illusion. Step back from the massive structure and look at the vast, stretching sands of the Giza Plateau. 4.5 millennia ago, this area was the beating heart of a massive, sprawling super-complex. The pyramid was simply the centerpiece of a gleaming white metropolis dedicated entirely to the afterlife. Before we uncover how this massive city completely vanished, please subscribe to our channel to join our ongoing exploration of lost ancient worlds. Originally, the Great Pyramid was surrounded by a massive protective enclosure wall made of pure white limestone standing over 8 meters tall. From the base of the monument, a perfectly paved ceremonial causeway stretched out for hundreds of meters across the desert floor, connecting the pyramid directly to a lavish mortuary temple down by the banks of the River Nile. The Grand Causeway alone was a staggering feat of engineering. It was a massive stone tunnel completely roofed over to protect the sacred rituals from the harsh sun. Narrow slits were precisely cut into the ceiling to allow dramatic shafts of light to illuminate the dark corridor. The interior walls of this massive pathway were intricately carved with beautiful, detailed reliefs depicting scenes of ancient life and the divine journey of the soul. At the end of this tunnel stood the valley temples. These structures were architectural marvels themselves, constructed with colossal blocks of red granite shipped down the river from massive quarries located over 500 miles away. The entire Giza Plateau was a highly active, perfectly orchestrated machine designed to sustain the spirit of the pharaoh. It featured dozens of smaller satellite pyramids, intricate boat pits, and bustling priest quarters that housed thousands of highly trained workers. The sheer logistical mastery required to plan and build this interconnected satellite city rivals our most advanced modern urban development projects. Yet the most haunting aspect of this massive necropolis is its complete and utter erasure. How does an entire city made of colossal stone simply vanish into the ether? Time is a remarkably cold-blooded killer. Over the course of thousands of years, the massive annual flooding of the river Nile slowly ate away at the lower valley temples. But the true forces of destruction were the generations of local inhabitants who systematically dismantled the causeways and enclosure walls. Just like the glowing casing stones of the pyramid, the smaller satellite structures were seen as a convenient source of free building materials. Brick by brick and wall by wall, the magnificent city of the dead was quietly carted away to build ordinary homes and agricultural walls for the living. We are talking about hundreds of thousands of tons of precisely cut stone that simply evaporated from the historical record. Today, almost nothing remains of that magnificent sprawling complex. The grand religious processions and the towering white walls have completely faded into the void. All that is left are faint, cold outlines in the bedrock and scattered foundation stones permanently buried under the blowing desert sand. Humanity completely erased the majestic surrounding city, leaving the Great Pyramid to stand totally naked and alone in the barren wasteland. We can easily point our fingers at medieval warlords and ancient scavengers for destroying the magnificent exterior of this ancient wonder. But what if the most dangerous threat to the Great Pyramid is not ancient history at all? What terrifying invisible killer is currently destroying the last wonder of the ancient world from the inside out right at this very moment? We just saw how the surrounding city was completely erased by ancient scavengers, but the most dangerous threat is happening right now. If you want to reveal the invisible killer destroying the pyramid today, press number 5 right now. We can easily point our fingers at medieval warlords and ancient thieves for destroying the magnificent exterior of this ancient wonder. We can blame the earthquakes that shook the foundations of Egypt. But the most ruthless enemy, the force that is actually bringing the Great Pyramid to its knees, does not carry heavy iron tools or flaming torches. It is a completely invisible killer. And tragically, it is entering the ancient structure through your very own lungs. To understand this silent destruction, we must step away from the blinding Egyptian sun and walk deep into the stifling, dark internal chambers of the monument. For over 4,500 years, the deep core of the pyramid remained absolutely dry and perfectly sealed. The ancient builders specifically engineered it to preserve the pharaoh in a state of perfect, unchanging eternity. The Great Pyramid stood incredibly invincible against time, surviving brutal wars, falling empires, and catastrophic natural disasters. It seemed completely immortal, resisting every physical blow. But the modern era brought a totally new, unprecedented threat. Today, millions of excited tourists from all over the globe travel to Giza every single year to step inside the last remaining wonder of the ancient world. They crawl through the cramped, jagged tunnels, hacking away the silence with their excited voices. But as they navigate these narrow stone passages, they are doing something far more destructive than breaking rocks. They are breathing. Every single exhalation releases a massive amount of warm moisture into the completely unventilated ancient chambers. Over decades, this continuous flow of human breath has altered the delicate microclimate inside the monument. Simultaneously, massive modern urbanization and poor drainage systems in the rapidly expanding city of Cairo have caused the local groundwater table to rise dangerously high. This water is quietly seeping up into the limestone foundations. When the rising groundwater meets the massive clouds of humid tourist breath inside the dark tunnels, a horrifying chemical reaction occurs. The natural salts buried deep within the ancient limestone begin to rapidly crystallize. As these tiny salt crystals form, they expand with a terrifying microscopic violence. They physically push against the solid rock, causing the walls to blister, flake, and ultimately turn into dust. This is the cruelest paradox of the modern age. The colossal blocks that effortlessly deflected massive earthquakes and resisted the heavy hammers of greedy conquerors are now rotting away from the inside out. The stone is literally suffocating, turning to powder under the sheer weight of our collective awe. It is a deeply terrifying reality. Humanity does not need to swing a giant wrecking ball to destroy the greatest architectural achievement of the ancient world. We are slowly killing it simply by wanting to be near it. Our deep admiration has ironically transformed into a silent kiss of death. The internal decay is happening right now, quietly eroding the flawless geometry that ancient masters bled to perfect. As the solid core of the pyramid slowly pulverizes into salt and dust, we are left staring at a deeply unsettling question. Will the last wonder of the ancient world eventually collapse and crumble into nothingness, not by the violent hands of a conquering enemy, but entirely by the innocent breath of its greatest admirers? We have journeyed through the violent and tragic history of the Great Pyramid of Giza. We witnessed the brutal stripping of its blinding white limestone armor by medieval builders. We looked up at the empty sky where a glorious golden capstone once connected the mortal world to the divine sun. We walked through the violent gaping wound ripped into its northern face by greedy warlords, and we stood in the empty desert where a massive gleaming city of the dead was completely erased by generations of scavengers. Finally, we uncovered the deeply unsettling truth that our own modern breath is silently rotting the ancient stone from the inside out. This story is not just a recounting of lost ancient architecture. It is a profound philosophical mirror reflecting the very nature of humanity. We often look at ancient ruins and easily blame the merciless passage of time for their destruction. We assume that thousands of years of wind and rain naturally wash away the greatest achievements of the past. But the tragic reality of Giza reveals that time is completely innocent. Humanity is the ultimate great destroyer. Before we conclude this journey, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing you the deepest mysteries of human history. The Great Pyramid stands today, not as a symbol of eternal triumph, but as a tragic mirror, reflecting our relentless greed, our desperate scavenging, and our fatal admiration. It survived massive earthquakes and the rise and fall of countless empires, only to be slowly dismantled by the very people who lived in its shadow and suffocated by those who travel across the world to admire it today. We are watching the slow, painful death of the last wonder of the ancient world right before our very eyes. If we can thoughtlessly tear apart a divine monument built specifically to last for all eternity, what does that truly say about the permanence of our modern world? If the greatest stone fortress ever constructed cannot survive the destructive force of human nature, what chance do our fragile modern cities have?